Here it is for you guys. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Thunder. We've got the Stash.
Is it the mustache? Who knows?
And we've got the Professor, Thomas Schooley, always first or fifth in line. It's a long school bell, Professor. All right, we don't want to waste any time with any silly sound effects or anything like that. We've got probably the best guest we're ever going to have on this show. Now the pressure's really on, as I know he's listening in the green room. But how do we even intro this guy? They call him, and I say I think this is from the captain himself, the mayor of Amalie Arena.
It's true.
He's been in the organization since before they even played their first game, has coached over 2,000 games, and had his name on 3 Stanley Cups. I think we've had someone on the show with 2 Stanley Cups before. Yep. This guy's got 3, all with our team. Tampa Bay Lightning video coach Nigel Kirwan. Welcome to We the Thunder.
Thanks, guys. Welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. That was an awesome intro. So probably more than I deserve, but I appreciate it.
No, you've brought the cups, you've brought the rings, you've brought a lot of victories. So I think I speak for everyone in the chat and everyone listening afterwards. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for helping these guys see the light through video for some of these awesome seasons. So we're super excited to have you. I've got a bunch of questions for you. I've got some questions from the listeners, but Thomas Schooley has been doing his research about you. Found out that you don't have a Wikipedia page, so we've got to change that. But I gotta ask my co-host, what's the first question you want to ask Nigel, our guest here?
Go ahead, Stash. You go first.
Wow. Okay. I guess I just kind of take it back to the beginning and like your roots of your family, being born in Jamaica, and then how you guys ended up, in Winnipeg. Then you went to South Dakota for a time, and then you spent most of your youth growing up in boarding school, right? Playing hockey in Winnipeg.
Correct. You guys have done your research. Yeah.
So that was from 4th grade all the way to you graduated, right?
Yeah. So I was born in Jamaica. My dad was doing some medical stuff down there at the time. My dad's a doctor, a retired doctor now. And then we went. He did undergrad in Winnipeg, Canada, and he went back to Winnipeg to do some more training for medicine. And by that time, I was 2 years old. And so my brother and sister were both born in Winnipeg, but I was born in Jamaica when my dad was down there doing some medical stuff. So that's how we got there. My dad had been there before doing his undergrad. We left for my dad took a job in North Dakota actually when I was like 9 years old. No, I was 7 years old, and honestly, I love. We lived in Minot, North Dakota, and I loved the place. It was a great place to grow up as a kid. It was very rural. It was outdoor. It was awesome. But my dad didn't want me to go to school there. Like he didn't think it was the best place for me to. It was like a small town. It was like a little house in the prairie-ish. So he sent me back to Winnipeg to go to a boarding school. It's the city we just moved from because he knew the headmaster of this pretty good school up there. So I went back there at the age of 9. So I was grade 4 when I went up to boarding school.
So that was like what, 79, 80?
We don't need to do the math on that, do we?
Well, because I'm like at the time, just like the timeline of when your parents came to Tampa and what brought them here in like the mid 80s or whatever.
So when he took the job in North Dakota, he was working for a clinic, and his goal always was to have his private practice. And we used to take these long drives around the United States. And he'd take like 6 weeks off, and we'd literally go one direction one year, the other direction another year, and another. Like in 6 weeks, we just drive around the entire country. So from East Coast, West Coast, South, North, see everywhere. We drove it, and I always thought it was just the thing we did as a family. We just took these really ridiculously long trips, but really what they were doing, they were trying to figure out where they wanted to live and set up private practice. And it ended up being Tampa, and it made sense too because our my relatives were all in the Caribbean, so grandparents were in the Caribbean, and so it provided proximity to relatives. So
Big snowbird area too. Even it's always kind of been right. Like,
sorry, what's that?
Like kind of a big snowbird area too, right? Like,
Yeah, big snowbird area.
Big Canadian presence, anyways.
My mom didn't exactly love the cold, and so it just made sense. And Tampa was a smaller town in Florida. It wasn't as big as Miami, and so that's the place they chose. But I didn't want to come down here. Believe it or not, I chose Winnipeg, Canada over Tampa, Florida. So reluctantly, they let me continue to stay. I was supposed to leave that boarding school because there's no longer a need to go there, and go to school here in Tampa. But I didn't want to come down, and it meant giving up hockey, and I wasn't ready to do that. So they reluctantly let me go back. And so by that point, I was grade 9. Yeah, I was going into 9th grade. I was going to high school, and so I continued schooling in Winnipeg before going off to college in London, Ontario, and then eventually coming down to Tampa permanently.
So that all culminated with you coming and graduating from here at UT, right?
Yeah, so I went to school at the University of Western Ontario in London, and then I came down here and went back to school at the University of Tampa to get another degree. And so so I ended up in school here, and that led me to the Buccaneers just for fun. It wasn't a career thing. I was planning to go either to the FBI, apply to the FBI, or get into financial advising. I wasn't really sure at that point. But while I was in school, I had an opportunity to get a job just as a ball boy with the Buccaneers. I got asked to be on the sideline for one game, and one game turned into two turned into four turned into 8.
But that one game was with Joe Montana as a quarterback.
The very first game was with Joe Montana. Yeah, the very first game was against the 49ers and Joe Montana. Yeah, wow. It's dating myself. And then and right when I was graduating and finishing up, the Lightning were in the middle of expanding to Tampa, and somebody I knew at the Buccaneers had a buddy who had been hired as a sales director for the Lightning. And because of being a hockey guy, he said to me, "Would you have any interest in throwing your resume, getting a job at the Lightning?" I said, "I'll throw my resume over there." Again, it was not something I was looking to do, but when you're 20-something years old and you need a job, you throw out resumes, right? And so I did it kind of on a whim, and they hired me. And the rest is a long history, obviously.
So the one other thing I wanted is it true that whenever, because you were there, right, as a sales and like ticket sales basically, right, and like management, stuff like that, marketing, and Crisp is the one that hired you, right?
Initially, the guy.
I mean, as the video coach. I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It was.
And you thought it was a joke?
That was 4 years later.
Yeah, but did you think it was a joke? Because that's like.
Yes, that's a true. That is a true story. Crispy. You got to remember too that at the time of that time, the Lightning organization was very small. Like it wasn't. It wasn't the hundreds of employees that it is now. There was like 30 or 40 of us, or it seemed like maybe 60 of us. I don't remember. It was small.
So it was the Tampa Bay Lightning startup company at that time.
Yeah, at that time, right? So, and I say that to make the point that we all kind of had to work. We all had to wear multiple hats and work with each other and help each other to lift this thing off the ground and get it started. And so I developed a relationship with Terry Crisp by that point. As the amateur hockey director, I was doing clinics to certify youth hockey coaches, and I got sick and tired of doing these things by myself. And I thought it'd be cool for the students if they heard from a real coach as opposed to me. And so I'd listed Crispy and Wayne Cashman and Danny Gare and Bobby G. Taylor to come and be guest speakers at these clinics. And that led to lunches afterwards where I'd pick their brains and ask them questions. And, he would diagram stuff on napkins for me. And, because I was coaching at youth hockey, amateur hockey at the time as well. So, and then one day he walked into my office. Now, again, he was a big practical joker. If you don't know Terry Crisp, he's a very funny guy, a big practical joker. One of the funniest guys I've ever been around. He's just a clown in that regard, always trying to make people laugh. And he came in and asked me to be his video coach, and I told him to go fly a kite. I didn't obviously use those words, but because I had and I've told the story before. I had a marketing report due that was late, and I didn't have time for a prank. And anyways, it it ended up not being a prank. And the next day I signed a contract, which at that point I still thought it was a joke, and until no one laughed and no one came into like, yeah. And I realized I'd committed myself to a career change that I didn't, at the time, I didn't think I was ready for.
How did they like come to you? Like you mentioned, like you kind of talked X's and O's. You were a hockey guy. You're Canadian.
So here's
were you a video guy though? Like
no,
where did the video
not
Are we talking VHSs at this time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing that people don't know. There's rumors out there that I've heard all this stuff before. None of it's true. Like that was the first video coach in the National Hockey League. Not true. That I was that people think I was the first Lightning video coach. I'm the third Lightning video coach. There were actually two guys. Well, video coordinator / video coach. There were two guys before me. And what I think for budget reasons, they had eliminated the position because the money was tight with the organization back then, and the ownership was cutting costs, and they eliminated the position. And then, but right when the season was starting, Terry Chris was like, "No, we got to have somebody. We can't. This isn't going to work." And at that point, I think they were probably a little bit of scramble mode too. And given what the interest I'd kind of shown Crispy by constantly picking his brain about systems and hockey stuff and asking him to diagram stuff for me, I just think he thought it would be a good fit. And it wouldn't, they didn't have time to really go out and do a national search. Right. So, because the season was starting. So that's probably why it was me. I'm guessing. I think Crispy will tell you that too. But that's how I ended up in the job. So
it's funny Shooter said about VHS tape and why I was reading some things about you, because you're one of the most humble people I've ever met. You will never give yourself kudos. I've had the pleasure of talking to you several times, and I know April, who's watching, she's talked to you several times, and you don't give yourself nearly enough credit. And you're very humble. But one of the things I was reading about you, it said back in the day, if there was back-to-back games, you used to hide VHS tapes in the ceiling tiles for the next team to come because they would ask you to videotape your guys' games. And so you would have to sit it in the ceiling tiles so that they could come in the next game and get that.
So yeah, there was two tricks we used to see. Here was a problem back in the day. Now it's easy. Now I have a software on my computer, this laptop I'm on right now, that basically reaches out to the cloud and grabs NHL games and downloads it right to my computer, ingests it into the software in which I'm going to use to break it down. But obviously we didn't have that whatever number of years ago it was. So getting game footage to pre-scout was a chore, was a task. You often relied on hotel managers to this is something that was on the road. This was a road problem. Here in Tampa, we had satellite dishes, and you tape the games. But on the road, you're not carrying a satellite dish, so you had to rely on the hotel managers. You'd often ask them to record the games for you, and they would always do it because they were trying to get the business, right? So they wanted the team in the hotel, so they do whatever they can. Sometimes I have to go to bars. I got to know some bars and sports bars and ask them to tape games, and there was all these methods. You had to get creative to get games, but sometimes the problem would be when you were traveling, like on a back-to-back, getting that game when you're leaving town, and it can be problematic sometimes. So the easiest thing to do would be if you were coming in behind a team, or if you were, let's do it the other way. Let's say I'm playing a game and I'm leaving, and another team's coming in right behind us. What we would often do is I'd make an extra copy of the game on an extra deck, and I would stick it in the ceiling tile, and because you don't want the other you can't we don't ask each other for help with beating you, right? So like I would never go to the team I'm playing and say, can you give me a copy of your last game so we can beat you? That it happens in NFL. NFL, they trade. I don't know if that happens anymore. I shouldn't say it used to happen. I can't speak for now, but you never asked the team you were playing for video of themselves to help you. That you shouldn't do that. So you would have to get creative. And if you were leaving, sometimes the team coming behind you say, hey, can you make an extra copy of the game and stick in the ceiling tile? And we would do that. And often if I was coming in on a back-to-back, I would do the same thing, and I'd get to the rink and then get up a chair and start like looking. And sometimes you'd see an X marking the spot on the ceiling tile. There was lots of those, by the way, around. And then you go in and you dig your way and you'd find the tape and you put it in and watch it. The other thing that you would do, which was, I think we called it a Trojan horse, was, the scenario would be, okay, I get to Chicago. And we're playing Chicago tomorrow night, the next night. Chicago is coming in to play a home game, but they're coming off the road. And what the Trojan horse would be is, let's say they were in Vancouver and they were coming back to Chicago to play, but we're already there waiting for them. Something we would sometimes have to do is I would call the Vancouver video coach, ask him to make an extra copy of the game. He would put it in a box, wrap it up, give it to the Vancouver equipment manager, who would go to the Chicago equipment manager and say, hey, can you take this to Tampa's equipment manager, thinking it was a piece of hockey equipment that they needed, whatever. But really, they were bringing their own scout tape to us for us to break. So Chicago's equipment manager would bring the tape with him to Chicago, hand it to our equipment manager, who would hand it to me, and I would open it up, and they would not know. They just delivered the game film of their game so that we could try to beat them. So we called that the Trojan horse. And we did
fantastic.
That. Those are the two of the sneakier ways we had to get road tape on the road. Sorry, game tape on the road.
That's awesome. Would you say that your job is easier now than it was then, considering technology's made leaps and bounds, but I think you're also maybe under a little bit more pressure based on the rules of the game today and challenges and whatnot.
It's just different. Back then, the technology wasn't there, so you couldn't do as much, and it took you a lot longer to do what you had to do. It was slower, and you just couldn't do as much, and the coaches didn't ask for as much. Now, with all the technology, with all the tools, with all the information that's out there, we're inundated with what we know, with stuff in terms of we need this. We have access to more. We get asked for a lot more, to the point now, but we can deliver it much quicker because we have access to it, right? With computers and technology and analytics, and it's all being mirrored together. Like it's just a lot easier to do, but there's way more of it, and to the point where now you have almost every team has two video coaches, and Brian Garlock is the other one here in Tampa, and is really good, one of the best in the league. So I don't know that it's gotten easier or harder. It's just different. Back then, it took me way longer to do a lot less, and now you do a lot more in a quicker amount of time, but you get asked for a lot more. So
yeah,
and the challenge thing is that's. I think Tom and I talked about this when we at the airport a few times. But yeah, it's the bane of our existence now. Like
and just so you know, whenever we see something questionable, maybe onside, goalie interference, anything like that, we at least all three of us on this this call, and everyone that listens, probably because people that listen to this are hardcore Lightning fans. We know who you are. And we are asking Nigel, come on, Nigel, make it happen, because we know you're back there watching those videos.
Well, you can see Halperin hitting the little microphone button, and you're like, oh, Halpy's talking to Nigel.
Yeah, well, there's two of us, and Brian Garlock is actually the one manning the machine, because I'm manning a different computer system, but he mans that, and we have eyes on it, and so both of us are looking at it, but quite often. We on the offsides, we tend to, most times we know before the goal goes in, it's whether it's offside or not, especially if the play lasts a little while. Often we're telling the bench that, hey, this is offside, and then 20 seconds later they score. The trickier ones are when they enter and score, and you got to try to figure out, is there goaltender interference, is there offside? You got to do that in 30 seconds. And one of the things that the misconceptions is out there is everyone thinks we have every angle and we've got every view of it. That is just not true. We have extra cameras that are in our inside the internal league system. It's called Hawkeye. There's cameras on the blue lines. We have access to that. They're not part of the broadcast, but they're often blocked out on the offsides. The legs are covering the puck or the stick, and there's when you got 4 or 5 guys all crossing the blue line around the same time, sticks, legs, and a puck in there, and especially with the pucks on the far side up against the boards, it's hard to tell. And then we rely on what you guys see, which is the truck broadcast. And if you think about an offside, they're showing the goal to the audience, right? They're showing replays of the goal, where we're usually stuck on the offside is what trips us up the most. It's not so much goaltender interference, because quite frankly, I don't even know what that is anymore.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
But they keep moving the goal line on us on that one. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to get fined for that. But how big an audience do you guys have? Is going to
Nobody listens to this show.
I hope.
No, don't worry about
we're
it.
good.
Yeah, so,
All right. Hey, so I have a really good question for you. I know people are also wondering this. We see one player, it seems like way more often on the iPads or whatever is on the bench there. What is Braden Point always looking at on this iPad? Is he looking at like the plays before? Don't give away too much. We don't want.
No. There's nothing to give away. I can't tell you for sure, because obviously I'm not out there. I know Braden is on there a lot. My guess is they're looking at what they could have done, why a pass didn't get through, if it was a goal against, like who was out of position. It probably runs the entire gamut situationally, depending on what happened on their last shift. If the shift was in the offensive zone, it was probably like, hey, I was open here. Can you get me the puck here? Next time I'm going to do this, or I thought you were here, so I didn't get you the puck, or. And I'm guessing, and then in our end, it's probably like I thought you were going. I tried to pick up this guy. I thought you were the first man. I was F2. It's probably any of those things. If it's a power play, they're probably looking at what's open and where they can seam the other team or get pucks to each other for goals. And so it's hard for me to sit and tell you what he's always looking at. Because I'm guessing it just depends on what happened on the previous shift. I'm 99% sure that it's probably the previous shift. Whenever they just got off the ice, they're probably looking at what just happened.
Well, it's a power play. You can see in that image there's 1 second left in a power play.
Yeah.
So I
imagine
So I didn't even look at that, but yeah. So in that particular case, they probably were looking at a missed opportunity, or what was open, or what seems they can get pucks through to set up plays.
So it's usually the last shift. Like
it's
what
usually the
happened
last
on
shift. Yeah,
looking
I'm
at
guessing
what they're doing, looking at what the defense is doing.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably the last shift.
It's not YouTube.
How does that work? Are you part of that, or do they just have those tablets that just have a feed and they have so many of them, or like are you the one that's feeding? Like,
well,
obviously you're too busy to be sending them like, oh, send me this clip right now, right? Like they have to have
it's not that. It's kind of coming from us down below, but that's just the way the system kind of works. The video comes from so we get the feed from the truck directly into our computer system, the system and into our software system. That system pumps it out to the iPads on the bench. So yes, the stream is coming from us, but it's the same for it's league provided. So the league creates as a contract with the Hawkeye company to do this, but it does come from our ingest into our laptop. In terms of me sending them clips, I'm not sending them clips, although there are clips available to them if they want. Things like chances for, chances against, power play, penalty kill, the basic stuff, goals against, goals for. There are buttons on there that they can click just to jump through the face-offs, just a few things that they can jump to immediately. But by and large, they're getting a stream of the game from our computer system. And so they're more than likely just scrolling back to their last shift, as opposed to I'm not sending them anything particularly live other than those topics I mentioned earlier.
Hey, you idiot! You missed this.
Yeah, that's definitely not going on. So that's Coop's job.
Do you ever get to have like any fun with the team? For example, when like Patty Maroon scores his first goal of the season, do you like put that out there? Look what Pat finally did after he was close to scoring the last couple of weeks. But
it's actually funny you mentioned that, because we had a funny clip today. There was the last clip in our meeting today for practice. We did a video session before we went on the ice for practice, and one of the clips that was in that meeting was, and people don't know this happened, and it's not a big deal to tell it, but there was a back check into our zone, or a track into our zone. Basically, it's the other teams skating into or attacking our zone, and tracking or back checking is how we chase that rush or come back to our zone, our arrival back into our in zone. And there's assignments into who picks up what and who does what. And Corey Perry went on a change, and then Pat Maroon misread the rush and had a missed assignment, and they got into it on the bench a little bit. They they're buddies, right? They go back to the Anaheim days, and they got into it a little bit on the bench. So that was talked about after the game. Nothing serious, but they were kind of chirping each other a little bit. So we had a video of it, and we showed it in the meeting. And it was the last clip, and as a joke, the coaches brought in popcorn, and they said, they asked Maroon and Perry to tell the team what happened on that. So they kind of got into it again in a joking way, completely joking, just kind of giving it like Perry started off saying Patty screwed up, Patty did this, and Maroon's like, no, you did that, and the whole team's laughing. And right before we engaged in that conversation, the coaches brought out popcorn and passed it out to everybody because we knew it was going to be a bit of a fun thing. But so we do fun stuff like that on occasion. Yes, absolutely. Anytime there's something, and things, it happens somewhat regularly where something funny happens, it's caught on video, and we'll surprise the players by sticking in a clip that they didn't know or they weren't aware of in there, and we'll make fun of it. But it also has to be the right mood. It has to be, it can't be after you chew the team out. It's more likely after a win than anything else. But
yeah,
sure, we do that stuff. Absolutely.
You didn't dare do, I think it was last Tuesday, Cooch just stepped on a puck by Apskin and just went down like a pile of bricks. You wouldn't do that to Cooch, I'm sure, right?
No, we'd do that to Cooch. Yeah, we did not do that to Cooch, but sure, that would fall in the category of and we've done that before where guys have bad falls or they wipe out or they tow themselves, but
so like basically Killorn all the time.
You should have a whole collection of killer falls.
Although I think Hagel is kind of taking over that role this season because like Hagel seems to be the one that's always on the ice
taking diggers.
Yeah. But I think it's almost for a little different reason. He's always seems to be getting beat up a little bit this year, but doing the dirty work on that line. But
yeah, we do have fun. There are times where there's video clips that present themselves that are just funny, and if the moment's right, you got to throw them in there, and the boys always get a good chuckle out of it. So.
Well, kind of as a follow-up to that, you talked about the funny part of it. What's the serious part of your job in like prepping the team using the video and stuff like that when you're doing practices? Is it like for every game? Is it like a weekly thing? Do you guys send out packages? Do you guys present it, to the team yourselves?
Yeah. So, basically, Gars and my role for the most part, most of our time is spent on pre-scouting opponents, and that's. Nowadays, there's so many coaches on an NHL staff. I started off there was like 3 or 4, and now it's like 7. So, our areas become a little more concentrated in terms of it's really down to mostly pre-scouting is what we do. So, our real role is more. And then there's management things we have to do too in terms of managing just the whole video system. Brian Stamathis. That's I used to coach him. I see that question on there from. What's up, Brian?
I know Brian.
You know Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I coached him a long time ago. Good kids. So, where was I? Oh, so so that's where we spend most of our time is pre-scouting, and because the other coaches they don't have time to watch a Seattle Columbus hockey game in its entirety. So. What we have to do is make sure they just give them pieces, the relevant pieces, the important stuff. We, put it get it down to 30, 40 clips to show the team. And then once we hand that off, the assistant coaches will then present to the team. And that's kind of that pre-scout meeting happens right before the game. Every game we have a meeting like 2.5 hours before the game starts, a video session, and there's always a pre-scout component to it of what the other team is doing. And then, but a day like today where there was no game, we played. It was a day off the day before. That was a review session. It's review of the last game. So typically on a normal game day, you have a morning meeting and you have an evening video session, and the morning meeting is both review and it's mostly review from the previous game. And then there's a separate power play meeting before that. And then in the evening, we do penalty kill first, and then we do the pre-scout meeting right after that, back to back. So that's kind of where we spend, where Gar and I spend most of our time in that.
No, we would get crucified if we didn't ask you probably the biggest question we got asked, because you've been here for every single coach from Chris all the way here to Coop. How was the years with Torts? And besides that, and here's something, you have Coop now, and you had Melrose in between, Boucher, some good coaches that came through here. But Coop, to me, I think has a lot of similarities with Torts. The only difference is Torts was very public about it. Now, I've been to some practices over in Brandon, and I can say Coop can get just as heated as Torts is, but not on the bench and not really in the press conference afterwards, as Torts is more known to do. But how is your relationship between all of them, especially with Coop now, who's been here, the last 10 years?
I still talk to every single coach I've worked for, with the exception of Jacques Demers, who was coach number 2.
Yep.
Yeah, he was coach number 2.
You talked to Melrose?
I was gonna say, you still talk to
I bump into Barry. I see Barry.
Nobody wants to talk to him.
No, Barry's a good guy. Barry's a really good guy. He treated me very well. I have nothing bad to say about Barry. Barry was awesome. So just a little bit of a tough situation he got caught in, but a really good guy. And yes, I see Barry. I don't see him as often, but I do bump into him kind of regularly. And so in that regard, I still talk to him. The only one I don't talk to anymore is Jacques Demers, and that's just because he's not well anymore. He's had a series of health issues, and I lost touch with him a bunch of years ago, and I know he's in ill health. So he's the only one I haven't spoken to. But I just talked to Steve Ludzig probably about 2-3 weeks ago. I still talk to Guy Boucher, still talk to John Tortorella. Crispy. Whenever I'm in Nashville, Crispy comes and finds me, and I see Crispy every time I'm in Nashville. So I still talk to, with the exception of Jacques Demers. I would if I could. I just don't think he's in great shape right now. And it hasn't been for quite a while. Mm-hmm. So he's the only one that I don't talk to. In terms of, to get back to your original question about Coop, Coop and Torts are probably the two most. Actually, Ludsey was in there too. The two most. Actually, Crispy was in there too.
I always felt like Boucher was a pretty intense kind of guy as well.
You know what, they all have that. I think Torts is famous for his outbursts, because he just doesn't care, and he's honest.
I've always thought Torts was kind of like playing chess with everybody, because it's like, as long as they're talking about me and the media and how I talk to the media and everything, they're not talking about my team, or I'm taking the brunt of it. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's always been part of his strategy. Part of it's just him being a loose cannon. But I think that is part of his strategy as well.
I think it's more loose cannon, to be honest with you. But
maybe more recently with Philadelphia, it seems that way.
I can tell you for those that would remember this, that I know for sure one time where he deliberately used that strategy that you're talking about was the whole shut your yap thing with the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yep.
That was a deliberate move to get attention, because the Flyers had just drummed us in game 2 before, and everyone was talking about how, and we won game 1, they won game 2, and everyone was talking about how the big bad Philadelphia Flyers were at that point we weren't a match for them, and they were going to dominate, and it was also a unique situation because we had, usually in the playoffs, we play every other night, in the playoffs. In that particular situation, between game 2 and 3, there was a couple days in between games. and Torts didn't want the media to be talking about the drubbing we just taken, so he deliberately changed the narrative. And I'm not saying he hasn't done that in other situations, but genuinely speaking, when you see him flying off the handle, he's lost his cool.
It's genuine.
And getting back to Coop is very intense as well, but but he does it in a more subdued, behind the scenes way. But I can tell you for sure that the same passion is there with John Cooper that is there with John Tortorella. John Tortorella displays it publicly. Coop, knows how to keep it behind the scenes and in the locker room. But I've absolutely seen Coop just as heated with the players in the team as you've seen Torts in the media with his team or with the media themselves. But they're both extremely competitive guys who I'd say the biggest thing they have in common is their disdain for losing hockey games.
So they hate to lose more than they like to win.
Yeah,
they both said that. Yeah,
there's a distinct disdain with those two for losing. Guy Boucher was like that. They're all like that. You can't become a head coach in the National Hockey League without having that passion for winning and the contempt for losing. So they all have that in common. They all display it differently. Coop and Torts are polar opposites in that regard, but I would say probably the two best coaches I ever worked with were those two guys. I'm not saying the other ones weren't any good. They were all great, and they all treated me extremely well. And I've got a soft spot in my heart for all of them. But yeah, don't. Coop's a cool cat when he needs to be, and he knows when the cameras are on, and he knows if you saw him behind the scenes in those moments where things have not gone well, he can turn on that switch, no problem.
Well, I want to say his fifth season when all the fire Coop things were going around, fire Coop. Because they didn't think he was mean enough on the team. And I used to say, and that's when you guys used to practice a lot over in Brandon. And I'd be like, you don't think he's tough on this team? Go to Brandon and just watch one of those practices. Because I heard Misha Sergachev's first season, I heard him lay into Sergachev on the ice and was like, do you want to be here? And I was like, oh, no. Coop does. It's just the lawyer in him does that very good thing in front of the cameras. I was like, no, he definitely gets on this team.
Yeah, he can, and it's his job too at times, right? Like his job's to light a fire under the team, and there are times where the guys just for whatever reason they're not bringing it, and they need to be, that needs to be dealt with, and there's also times where the team is not playing well, and you've got to approach them with kid gloves and pat them on the back and pump them. And he's really he might be the best manager of players that I've out of the 8 I've been with. I'd say he's probably the best manager of players. And just he's got a great knack for getting to the little thing that needs to be said or done to make a course correction. He's really good at finding the exact, because it's hard to do, to change up your message and keep the teams engaged with you as a head coach after 10 years. It's not easy because they've seen most of your act, they've seen most of your strategies, the way you try to motivate them, and it's not easy to come up with something new. But for Coop, it's somewhat natural. And it's not artificial. Sometimes coaches will manufacture it a little bit. It's not with him. He's got a real good knack for just getting to the message.
Well, there's a reason why his teams are known for not losing back-to-back games. I mean, and I think that's a big part of it. I mean, you look at it even this season, even though it didn't start out as well as we all wanted to, they've only lost back-to-back games once, and that's game 3 and 4.
Actually,
Since then, they haven't lost. So
I think last year was, because one thing I had said prior to Coop, I mean, not publicly, because that's just not my forum, but I've always said that every team I've been with at some point during the year, you go through 2 crashes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're months long, and sometimes they're weeks. But if good teams always have 2 dips, and Coop's the first coach I've been around that doesn't really have those. Actually, to be honest, and again, I have a terrible memory, but I think last year we had that slide. Probably, I don't know, it was February, March, somewhere in there, April. We had a bit of a slide and a prolonged one. That was the first time I really kind of remember Coop ever having a somewhat prolonged period of time of losses. I can't remember. I don't remember the numbers. I'm terrible with it, but I'm going to say we lost like 6 of 8 or 4 of 6 or what. Again, don't hold me to the number because I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not normal for a Coop-led team. He might lose 1 or 2, and 1, and then sometimes a second one, but not very often. And so that what I used to say years ago just hasn't been true with the John Cooper teams.
Yeah, and that's actually true. It's something when you've been a hockey fan for so long, there's certain stereotypes that we talk about, and that's one of them. Is that if you watch hockey for so long, that's what teams go through. Those losing streaks, you're going to have a slump. You're going to have a losing streak.
And he doesn't.
You're right. His teams just don't.
His teams just don't, and it's his ability to make that course correction and say the right thing and get to the identifying the problem that's causing us losses at the time and correcting them. He's the best I've seen at that. There's no doubt.
Well, we definitely had our problems with him not winning a Jack Adams yet in his career. I think this season, after having to replace so many, being so tight up against the cap, making the trades they did, and the way they started, if they get in a typical Lightning production from this season, I think he might finally be in those talks this season with what he's had to go through and the way this team is playing still consistent hockey this season, even though they're not playing their best hockey.
Yeah, I'm obviously
start out playing. They're playing much better hockey like the last 2 weeks for sure, 3 weeks really, but like they definitely didn't start out the way they wanted to really start out with the injuries and the new guys and the lack of depth in certain areas.
Yeah, again, I'm biased, but I think it's borderline criminal that John Cooper has not won a Jack Adams yet. He's been the best coach in the league as far as I'm concerned, and again, I'm obviously biased, but he's been the best coach in the league for the last decade.
Yeah, we talk about
no arguments here
all the time on this show. So I still think this year is going to be an uphill battle more than you do, Stash. We got some pretty good questions on the social media, so let's ask you a couple of those, and we'll get you out of here. Got a good one from Bolts042807. It's tough to get a good Bolts handle, by the way, these days. You got to dig deep into the 042807. Maybe that's a date or something. So they're asking, besides the 3 cups, what is something or a special moment with a player or coach that has impacted you in this role? Cups not included. So is there any other moments or anything that stands out to you?
That's impacted me. Impacted me.
Something that'll stick with you forever.
There's been not counting Stanley Cups. There's been a couple, like Marty St. Louis, when we raised his jersey to the rafters, he made a comment about me and our relationship that touched me, and that's something that was special to me and personal. And then there's other things that I've seen that I thought were really cool. I don't know if they impacted me, but we were in Winnipeg, and I just talked about this the other day. We were in Winnipeg, which is I consider myself my hometown. Again, I wasn't born there; it was my hometown, and it was a year that Stammer. It was the last game of the season. Guy Boucher brought me onto the bench for the game because it was my hometown, and so. I don't know why I remember this, but it was pretty cool. Stammer had 59 goals, and every time he touched the puck, the Winnipeg Jets fan they gave it to him. They were booed, like the loudest booing I've ever heard in my life. And it was my hometown, so I was kind of a little ticked off about it because it was my town. But they're also real passionate hockey
No,
fans.
hockey
So,
people, yeah.
and they just gave it to him every time he touched the puck in time because they knew he was on 59. It was just boo, boo, boo. And right at the end of the game, he scored his 60th. And I remember the entire building standing up and gave him a thunderous standing ovation. And I because I was on the bench, which I'm not normally. I've been on the bench a few times, but I'm not normally on the bench, as people know. But I remember
wasn't that the last game of the season too that year?
I think, I'm pretty sure it was the last game. It was the last game of the year. It was in Winnipeg. It was my hometown, and I remember getting goosebumps at this. Like it was just cool to hear boos the entire game. You think about how many times Stammer touched the puck in a hockey game, right? It's happening every couple minutes,
especially that season.
Yeah, so it was just boo after boo, like just constant booing, and then once he did it, a thunderous. They quiet for a second, and then the whole arena stood up and gave him a thunderous applause. Awesome. And there's things that have happened on the airplane, like Andre Waugh. After we lost Game 6 in Philadelphia, we blew the game. We when we're on the airplane back to Tampa, and the only thing we knew at that point was we may have just blown our opportunity to go to Stanley Cup Finals. And we had a Stewie go down. She passed out, and so things got a little tense on the plane. There's some concern, but the plane was dead. Like it was just a bad vibe on the airplane. And I didn't know this. But Marty St. Louis was encouraging Andre to do something. And then Andre Waugh got up. He took the Stewie's apron, took off his clothes, and he literally – and she had a thick Southern accent. And he literally took the cart and went down the aisle and just pretended to be her. But you didn't realize until you got by that he was completely naked behind. And he may have had a cookie crumbled in his cheeks.
Oh, no.
So there's things like that come to mind. I don't know if that falls in the category of impacting me, but there are these. I'm trying to get away from your typical answers that people know about. Like obviously raising Stanley Cup, you can't trump that. Yeah. Especially being a Canadian kid, something I dreamt my whole life, and I've done in an artificial pretend way my whole life. But I think. Go ahead.
No, I'll say just a quick follow up on that. I was at the game the other night, the Nashville game. And how loud that ovation was for McDonough and the tribute. Yeah. That's maybe the loudest I've ever heard Amalie Arena, aside from like a playoff game, like Game 6, Game 7, elimination playoff game. And it was such a long ovation. It
was awesome, and McDonough was choked up, and I don't know if people know this, but I think
metal plate.
He's got something in his mouth. I talked to him, so he's having trouble. I think had he not had that, you would have seen his lips quivering, but it was kind of locked into place right there. But he and I saw his dad afterwards, and he was choked up. But there's been a lot, like and there's things away from the ring too, like the kids that have. Touched you with their battles, and then the military service and women that that's always been something that's been really cool for me. Is I've had these opportunities to interact with and I've always been fascinated with the military, and I've got these opportunities to interact with them and do some cool stuff. And the White House visit was awesome. And I talked about this on an earlier podcast. Something that was kind of neat. Actually, this might fall in the category of impacting me. We're at the White House on that visit earlier this year, and we're on the South Lawn, and we're getting ready to do a rehearsal of the ceremony, but we're just kind of engaging with some people there. And I have a buddy that is retired from the Secret Service, and I've known him for 10, 15 years, and he's always joked about guys in black snatching me in the middle of the night because he's a, can I say ball buster?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
a hockey podcast, man. It's a hockey podcast.
Better ask for forgiveness and permission. But right. He's a notorious ball buster, and he's always threatened to, hey, you better watch how you talk to me. I'm going to send someone in the middle of the night to come rendition you, kind of thing. And so I'm at the White House lawn. He's retired. He's been out for 5-6 years now. And I'm on the White House lawn, and the Secret Service agent comes up to me and he goes, "Are you Nigel Kirwan?" And right away I'm like, oh, here we go. Johnny finally got me. He sent the G-Man after me. And I'm like, yeah, I am kind of nervous. Like, what's going to happen here? Knowing it's going to be some kind of joke. And he goes, "You don't remember me, but I'm from Tampa, and I used to do your hockey school when I was a kid."
Wow.
And I was just like, what? Like it just absolutely shocked me. And it was just really cool that, here's this kid that I had, and we've become good friends and we've stayed in touch. As a matter of fact, we were just in Washington. I had drinks with him and his wife. But it's also little things that happen, and people come up to you, and like even Brian Stamathis, chiming in right there earlier on is, as a kid, I remember when I was coaching those. I think when I'm done and I've left this this game, yes, I'm going to remember the Stanley Cups, and yes, I'm going to remember the moments, but those big moments. But I think what I'm going to remember the most is the people I encountered, the interactions I had, whether it be players, coaches, fans, friends, all the cool people I've met, whether they're in the military, kids that have beaten cancer or lost their battles. I think those are the things that I'm probably going to reflect on the most. Because they're the things that impact you the most, is the people you work with and the people you get a chance to meet. And when you work in professional sports, you're so blessed to have this access to all these cool things, because people want to touch the team and they want to engage with you. And it's been just a blessing to live this life. And so I in terms of things that impact me, it's those moments with people, whether they were behind the scenes or out in the public, whatever, that I'm going to remember the most.
Yeah. And I hope you give yourself enough credit, because, we always talk about Phil Esposito as the guy bringing hockey to Tampa, but, you've been doing it pretty much as long as he has, and coaching this team. And, everyone in the chat, everyone that's going to listen to this afterwards, we know who you are. You helped put hockey on the map here in Tampa. And, this podcast probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for you and a lot of your colleagues that are out there. So we appreciate you a lot.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Tommy's right. I don't like a lot of,
it's too humble.
I don't like attention and accolades, but I don't feel like, I feel like I'm just a guy that's been privileged to do a job. And
there's a story you told me, and maybe I'll get it a little bit wrong here or something, but I thought one of the funniest moments, because there was a lot of people there 2016 when you guys came back with the Eastern Conference trophy from New York. There was about 1,500 there at the airport. Coop has you go and take it out in the middle of the whole crowd, because you were the only one that was allowed to touch it because you had won it before. And then at the end, he's all yelling. He has all of us yell, "Get over here, Nigel! Come back, Nigel!" One of the stories you tell about that is when you guys land and you go and pick him up from it. He's riding with you in your truck, and he tells you you're forgetting the trophy, and you didn't even realize it was on the plane.
No. So what happened there is we were in New York. We're in the coach's room, and a lot of fans know this. Our little honey hole afterwards was always 4 green fields on Platte Avenue. And I remember calling them, because they were going to be closed when we got there, but we had a great relationship with them. And I remember I called them from the locker room in New York. It was like, "Hey, we're coming in hot. You guys can be open, because if you're open, we're coming in and celebrating," right? So we land in Tampa, and Coop was like, "Nigel, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to Fort Greenfield." He goes, "Are they open?" I goes, "I already made the call. They're going to be open." And he goes, "Well, shoot, I got to give Julian a ride home. Hold on a second, let me." Because Julian,
take the boss out first.
Yeah, he for some reason he had to take Julian needed a ride home. I can't remember why. And he was like, "Shoot, I got to get Julian a ride home." And I said, "Well, he goes, hold on." So I went to my car, and he made me drive up to the plane. And he says, "I'm going to ride with you, and I'm going to give Julian my car, and I'm going to go with you to Fort Green Fields." I'm like, "All right, let's go." And I put my luggage in, and I'm like, "Let's go." He goes, "What do you mean? We got to get the trophy." I'm like, "What trophy?" He's like, "The Eastern Conference trophy." He goes, "It's on the plane." I'm like, "It is? I didn't know that. Like, we didn't have it up top. We had it on the bottom." So he brings the trophy. I'm waiting. All I want to do is get a Guinness in me. That's all I cared about at that point. Like, I just want to continue the celebration. So he makes me. We grab the trophy, and we're about to put it in my car. He goes, "No, you gotta take it to the fans." And again, I'm not that guy at all. Like, I'm not the guy that wants to be 1,000 people look at me. I'm not a showboat. Like, I've never been that person. Like, I cringe in the limelight. And so he made me take that trophy out to you guys and hold up there. And I did not. It's not that I don't want you guys to feel a part of it. I just don't want to be the guy to do it. Like, I didn't want to do it, right? So that was the ironic part, is he makes me go do that, and then I'm 500 people deep. And all of a sudden he starts yelling at me. He goes, "Come on, everyone, come on, Nigel, let's go. You wait till you had enough time. Like, you're enjoying the glow." I'm like, "You're the one who made me do this." So I was jokingly pissed at him for that. He totally submarined me. I had nothing to do with that.
That was there. He was like, on the count of three, everybody.
Yeah, on the count of three, everyone's
we gotta go.
Nigel, we gotta go. But meanwhile, I'm the one who, like, I'm not taking that out there. I don't want to take it out to the, like, you take it out there, but obviously he couldn't, because it was there's that superstition,
yeah,
which we've violated a bunch of times, by the way.
Multiple times.
We have deliberately grabbed the conference trophy. I think every year, the 2 years we won and then the year we lost, we've deliberately grabbed it. And so we've kind of kiboshed that to us. And other teams have as well. People don't know that, but yeah, I got submarine on that one.
That's awesome. And those are the things I love about hockey, and especially living here for 20 some odd years. Back in 2004, I've told the story so many times, but I was one of those kids out there sleeping on the plaza to get in line for the $8 tickets at the box office as soon as I opened on game day. And so, like, that was an entire experience for me, being so young, and how I identified just moving here a couple years ago as a transplant, and how in 20 years this has really become the real identity of me being a Tampa resident, is the Lightning. And I grew up with kids from Minnesota and Ohio that were big hockey kids up in northern Florida. So it was something I always loved. And so coming here and being close to a team that's won, and that you get to see the family, and how you hit, like Corey Perry talks about how these guys live so close to each other on Davis Island, and they're right by the rink, and it's all a community, and how it's not like that on every team, and how it kind of creates a special bond. And it's cool hearing these stories, because hear from every sports team, but it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more of a family bond when we hear it coming from behind the scenes of the Lightning organization.
Yeah, we do have a really tight group, and I don't care what people think. We live in it's become a hockey town, and our fans are one thing I've noticed over the last 10 years or so is the amount of Lightning jerseys I now see when I'm on the road on the bench for warmups. It is vastly grown. It's not just the Tampa fans that are here. There's a lot more on the road than I've ever seen in my career, and it's just been a great community. And I talked about impact, or we talked about impact earlier, and the fans that I have met that I can now consider friends is I can't even count how many I've met over the years. And actually, no one probably knows about this. This just happened yesterday, and it was very quiet. Phil Esposito hosted in Ybor City yesterday at Bernini's. He hosted a bunch of original staffers. We all got together kind of quietly in a private room, and it's people I hadn't seen in 20, 30 years, secretaries, a lot of salespeople. There was a bunch of people there. Bobby the Chief Taylor was there. Rick Peckham was there. Obviously, Chief was there. The original general counsel and attorneys, people will get the team here. Really, really, really cool moment. But yeah, our community is fantastic. That's why I haven't left, to be honest. Like, I've had opportunities to leave. It's like, why am I going to leave this? So
yeah, no reason to leave. Stay here. We need a couple more Stanley Cups.
You and Stamkos
rewarded.
You and Stamkos.
You've been rewarded. Yeah.
I don't know how many more I have left in me. We'll see. It's been a long road. So
all right. So we've taken you way over what we promised. I've got a lightning round, if you will, of questions. Just 5.
Okay.
And to have fun fun with these. But we'll go through here. No explanation needed. You can just answer.
A little nervous, but yeah, I'm good.
If you need to explain, you can.
Okay.
But what started off with this one, because the stash has the new jersey on. I actually had it on first, and then he showed up here with it on.
I bought it first.
It was like reverse retro a week last night. Thomas doesn't like it, obviously. I got the Stadium Series jerseys. What we want to know is, what was your favorite Lightning jersey in history?
The black ones that we just got rid of.
Oh, really? The controversial black, the fadeaway gray, or whatever ones.
Right? I love them. They're wow. I will say this: they're difficult for my job because I can't see the names and numbers very well on a laptop, and I know broadcasters don't like them, but I that's probably my.
Asking the hard hitting questions around here.
Yeah, 'cause I love the blue, and you know what's funny, when we changed jerseys the first time to the Tampa Bay with the blue and silver bolts, the second jersey, I hated it. I really liked the original one. And then when we changed under Vinnick, and I remember they revealed them to us, I think in Brandon actually. And I remember when I was saying it, because I really hate jersey changes. I'm not a big fan of them for the most part. Whatever the original one, usually it's not very often teams upgrade, I find. When I saw the blue and the white, which we wear now, I was like, wow, because I like clean and simple. And I was like, wow, they just kept it simple. You know, so that probably answers your question about Stash's, how I feel about Stash's jersey. It's
full disclosure, I slept on last year's reverse retro, which I thought was a really, really good sweater. And
is that the blue one?
Yeah,
I like that one.
And they didn't do what they did this year, which was release more after the initial sell. They just sold them, and then that was it. So I was just like, no matter what, I'm gonna get this one this season. And it doesn't help that I know Thomas Schooley, and I was at the release and got discounts.
I'm gonna change my answer. I think the blue one that we wear now is probably my favorite. My second favorite is probably the black one, the all black with the sublimated gray. It's probably my second favorite one. So.
Yeah. So Lightning fans, if you want that jersey, the ones they have in the stadium, once they sell out, they ain't getting them back. So go buy those black jerseys if you like.
I tell you what, I do love I did love the outdoor. I love the jersey you're wearing there.
Sweater.
Yeah, the stadium sweater was really, really cool. And
especially the
jacket they gave us as coaches is
you got the jacket.
It's
you
really
got one
cool.
of those.
I've been offered a lot of money.
I bet you have.
They sold the jacket, but wasn't it like $5,000 or something, Schooley?
Yes,
it was some crazy amount.
That was the bag with the equipment in it.
Oh,
they
really
sold all the players' Stadium Series bags. They did them for auction, and it had gear in them. So they just did those. But I can tell you what he said about Stash's jersey. I was the one that showed Nigel it the first time, the picture of it when he got off the plane, and his reaction is better now than it was before.
He lived through the first one.
Said it all when
I have to be.
At least we have a better record in this than the original one.
Yeah,
they were pretty good in the original.
They were pretty good in the original too. I think.
All right, we suck at lightning rounds.
I'm good. I know where I got to be, so I got all the time in the world.
Favorite NHL city to visit?
Oh my God!
Nice. God, we hit him hard.
We hit him hard.
You can't say Winnipeg either.
Like 6 cities come to mind. Yeah, if you put a gun in my head and make me pick one. I'm a sucker for New York City. I love
Big Apple.
Nashville's when I was trying to narrow it down between Nashville and New York City. It's between them, but I love Chicago. I love Montreal. I love Calgary. It's a sneaky good town. There's a bunch I like, but if you said what's my favorite, it's New York or Nashville. I'd say it's probably my favorites.
Good choices. Some of the reason why we ask is because we like to go to away games at least once a year. Schooley's going to Dallas. I'm trying to go over to Phoenix to see that Mullet Arena deal that they've got going on.
Go to a high school game, my man.
I mentioned that one too. So
Nashville's at the top of a lot of people's lists.
Nashville's very fun to go to.
Oh yeah, Nashville's awesome. Like if you said no, Nigel, you're wrong. It's Nashville. I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Like you're not wrong. Like it's.
All right, this is an interesting one because we got an insider scoop on this one. Biggest fear. See if he's right.
My biggest fear?
Yeah.
This is 2 podcasts that somehow I feel like you
really.
I feel like you've got a story. I got surprised and I did a podcast this morning, and this fear was brought up.
It's a podcast thing.
I have a horrific fear of moths.
Yep.
There you go. Somehow
really?
Thomas
Yeah.
Cooley knew that.
How'd you know that?
Because the one time a leaf flew into your car and
Oh,
you
that's
freaked
right.
out and almost
That's
jumped
right.
out of the car. Because
That's
you
right.
thought
That's
it
right.
was a moth.
I remember that. Yeah. I have a phobia from moths, and
All
it's
right.
funny because
There we go.
I honestly don't really talk about it unless there's one around, because when people know you're scared of something, you start
use
getting
it
them
against
in
you.
in abundance, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I did the block party podcast this morning,
Mhm.
and Coburn, we were at a birthday party earlier in the week together, and I had a bunch of friends there, and they revealed to him I didn't know about it about my fear of moths, but yeah, I am terrified of
Former friends, a bunch of former
yeah,
friends.
exactly right. I'm terrified of all, believe it or not, of all things. I'm terrified of moths.
At the airport, literally a leaf came flying from a tree, and you would think someone was in his car with him. The way he almost jumped out of that car, and he's like, "Are you sure it's not a moth? Are you sure it's not a moth? It's just a leaf." And we were like, "It's a leaf," and he's like, "Okay, because I'm scared of moths."
Yeah, and the story behind that was I talked earlier in the podcast about my Caribbean heritage. I think I did. Maybe I'm confusing the other podcast.
Oh, yeah.
My parents from the Caribbean. Obviously, I was born in Jamaica. My dad spent time at the University of West Indies in Jamaica, and I have this vivid memory being down there visiting grandparents or uncles or aunts or whatever when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I'm running around as any kid does, and insects in my mind, insects in the Caribbean are just ginormous, right? And I had this memory of me running around, yelling and screaming, whatever, and a giant moth flew into my mouth, and it got caught in there, and I was like gagging on it, and I couldn't get it out. It died in there, and it's like I'm getting sick to my stomach just thinking about it right now.
Man,
And
way to go, Shooter.
and moths don't fly straight, right? Like you can't.
No.
It's not like they're going in a straight line. They zigzag all over the place. You don't know where they're going, and I'm just terrified. Every time I see a moth, I just think it's gonna end up in my mouth. So yeah, I'm terrified of moths, and I now whatever the Block Party podcast didn't cover, you guys have got, and I know I'm going to be. Yeah, I don't stand at nighttime. I don't stand outdoors near lights.
Yeah,
Stay away from those lights. Those moths like those.
Yeah, I stay away from lights.
I feel like we're getting the origin
lived
stories
down here as long as you have. I mean, because there are some it's
but
the Caribbean. There's some giant moths around.
But I don't really. If you think about how hot it is, I'm not really around lights and at nighttime. You're mostly indoors, and
True.
I think it's more of a problem up north because you spend probably more time outdoors at nighttime and enjoying the weather, and that's when all the moths come. Yeah, I hope they go extinct at some point.
All right, I got a much easier one for you. It's kind of a two-parter here. Funniest player on the team today and funniest player on the team all time. You got a lot of seasons to go back to dig.
All time
is Wah.
All time is easy. That's Andre freaking
Rapping with Wah.
Is absolutely hysterical, and it is, if people could see the acts I've seen from that guy, I don't know how he should be in movies. He is.
They did a segment. They did the
hysterical.
segment back on Sun Sports where rapping with Wah.
Yeah,
and they'd have him go around and interview like the other players and stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely hysterical. The funniest player now, for me, it's Anthony Cirelli. Cracks me up. Like I think he's just Andre was deliberately funny, like trying to make he attempts to be funny. Tony Cirelli he's just funny. He just cracks me up. He's just his antics, his stories, his situations are just funny. So I'd say now it's Cirelli and all time Andre Waugh, and between the two, it's not even close. I got to give it to Andre Waugh.
Yeah, but it's good to have Cirelli back.
Yes,
last week.
So that was an easy question. That wasn't a really easy one.
All right, this one we're gonna totally 180 it, 360 it actually, because this one's gonna be really tough. But you might have an answer for it. What was your favorite cup?
Favorite cup?
Yep.
No, that's actually pretty easy because it's the first one. It's the first. Well, it's the first one. Just because at that point, I didn't know it was possible, right? And you experience everything for the first time. You don't know what it's going to be like. That being said,
Bubble cup.
one thing I will never. One thing that was really cool about the second cup, and it. Well, there's two things that were really cool about the second cup, and it's because of COVID that we got to experience these two things. And when you win the Stanley Cup, like Cup 1 and Cup 3, the locker room after you win is a mob scene. Like there's literally hundreds of people around, and rightfully so. Like it's parents, it's brothers, siblings, it's wives, girlfriends, children. It's just a mob of people. Like my dad was down there, my brother was down there, my sister was there, I think the first year. So really, really cool. But what was really cool and unique about the COVID win was it was just the team. It was just the players, coaches, trainers, and we got to have hours of celebration together, which you don't experience at the other ones because there's so many other people around. Like you can't even move in the locker room. Like we won the 1 and 3 in Tampa, obviously, and you couldn't even move in the locker room. Like it's just jammed. So it's a different kind of celebration. But I really enjoyed that private one with just us in year 2. And then the other thing that was born out of COVID was the boat parade. That probably never would have happened had it not been for COVID. So really cool experience. And we did the car parade the first year, and I hope we never do one of those. I mean, probably different. The city was different back then too, but the boat parade is really, really, really cool.
We want more boat parades.
Yeah. So do I. Yeah. And so I will give a nod to number 2 for that reason. That those two celebrations really ring out with me, but I think just the unexpectedness of number 1 will probably still be my favorite.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It makes a lot of sense, but especially I like about number 2, like, I mean, what other team is going to have that experience? Hopefully we never have to have a bubble, cup run again, but for the Lightning to come together and win that and be the team that, has that experience, it's got to be a pretty memorable one for you as well, but can't blame not having the first one. We started this podcast back in 2020. So after you guys won that cup, we were live till 3 a.m. ish on the internet.
Like that.
We were having people come on and toast. Sonia Bryson showed up. Thomas Schooley logged in from wherever.
I have to cross from the airport.
It has been an awesome last couple of years, and it's just awesome to be a Lightning fan. We've been Lightning fans for a long, long time. We've known your name. We've seen you around, and we really, really appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
No, happy to do it. I appreciate you guys having me on as a guest. It's an honor. So thank you.
One of the things I did read, Nigel, before you go, is that you said it tonight, how once this is done and put the cups aside, your friendships that you have done. And one of the things that amazes me is your friendship with some of the players. Like you talk about you and Ben Bishop, about how close you guys are. And Bish was loved in this community, of course, and then became a casualty of the cap and everything else. Do you have that now with current players that you have with, Bish? And do you still keep in contact with a lot of ex-players?
Oh yeah. There's been so many that you're not in contact with the majority of them because I don't even know how many. That'd be quite. I'd love to know how many guys have suited up for the Lightning at this point in my career. But I'm still in touch with. As a matter of fact, I just talked to Brad Richards last Friday. I just saw Vinny Lecavalier. I've stayed in touch with Vinny Lecavalier. Marty and I are still really tight, and obviously John Tortorella, and I still talk to Guy Boucher and other assistant coaches. But it's a little bit different now in terms of, and I'm really tight with Stammer. I'm tight with Pat Maroon, Tony Cirelli. But I don't. Coaches and players don't really hang out It's not something you really do. I used to do it a lot more when I was younger, and I was more in that age, the same age category, like particularly the Marty St. Louis, Vinny Lecavalier, Brad Richards era. Actually, we had a reunion a bunch of years ago, and Tim Taylor was telling story after story after story about all this. And then Torch was there, and he said, "Yeah, Nigel was with us on all these. You know that, Torch?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I may have been. I caroused when I was younger. So, but now there's a bigger age gap, I don't hang out with those guys as much.
Yeah.
We cross paths on occasion." But that being said, I'm still tight with Killer, Stammer, Patty Maroon. But
the older guys.
Yeah, the older guys. The guys that are around longer. But I've distanced myself a little bit. But I know for sure. Like I went to a Tragically Hip concert a bunch of years ago in Toronto, right before the lead singer passed away of cancer. It was their final tour, and I posted a picture going up there, and on my Instagram, it was a group of us that were going up there. And I land, and there was a text message from Steven Stamkos. Like it was the off season, it was summer, right before he signed that contract. And I landed, and there was a text message. He goes, "Dude, you're coming to Toronto, and you don't even call me. Like you don't even let me know you're coming." And I'm like, "Dude, my bad. It's a last minute thing. We're flying in for this concert, and we're in and out." And he goes, "Hey, I'm here with Teddy Purcell. Teddy Purcell's in town, and I think Ryan Malone was in town, and somebody else."
That crew.
By the way, might be the funnest group ever in Lightning.
I bet.
Not sure how much they were going to win hockey games, but they were a lot of fun. But I said, "I'm in for this concert." He goes, "Well, meet me out afterwards. We're going to this. The guys are going to. We're going to the bar." And Teddy was gone by then, and Bugsy was done by then too. And he says, "We're all meeting at this bar after the concert. Come on over, hang out with us." So I did. So yeah. Listen, my view of these guys is probably a little bit different from a fan view, because they're coworkers, right?
Coworkers.
I see them every single day. I spend more time with Steven Stamkos than I have with my mom and dad in the last 10 years, or my brother and sister. I spend more time with Sorelli and Coop and all these guys than I do with my family. It's just the nature of what I do. So there's always going to be a bond there between all of us that have, and when we're on airplanes together, we're in restaurants together, sometimes we're at bars together, we're in the rinks together, we're on buses together. So it's hard not to form a bond with all these people, the ones that are around for any kind of period of time. And
for the record, I'm willing to give up my family to hang out with Stammer. just for the record.
Well, hey, it was the Stash who predicted 60 this year again from Stamkos, and for the first 2 weeks of the season, we thought for sure it was going to happen after the first 2 weeks. Hey, he's been pot lately too. So
13 games.
Never know. Cool. Well, right. School, you got any more questions?
Yeah. No, as we're trying to get him out of here, you got any last minute, freaking 15-minute answer questions for him?
Nigel, anything you want to tell the Lightning fans that watch this show or listen?
No, the only thing I would say is, the treatment I've got from fans over the years has been, and then more than any kid from Canada probably deserves, and I'm really grateful for, I just hit 2,000, and I need to get on there, and I'm not great with social media, Facebook stuff, but I need to get on there and write a thank you note. But I would say this to all those people that have reached out and had such kind words for me over the last week or so, or over the last bunch of years. I really appreciate it. I'm not a guy that likes a lot of attention or the limelight, and really reserved. But I would say thank you. It's been a humbling honor to serve this team and serve all of you as a video coach for the Lightning. It's been a great blessing. So I would say thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully we can maybe get you on here during the off season again to talk about what happens this season, but best of luck this season. No pressure. Like I said, since we've been doing this podcast, you guys have made it to the Stanley Cup finals every single year. So the bar's there, especially with this fan base. Don't go on social media after we lose one game in a week, and just don't do it. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Hopefully we'll see you raising another cup sometime soon.
Hopefully, and I'm happy to do it. And yeah, just, I see Thomas kind of regularly. Thomas is one of the fans that's always at the airport when we land. It doesn't matter how cold it is or what time in the morning it is. I feel like Tom is there 9 times out of 10 landings. So and we just appreciate every one of you, and thank you. Yeah, anytime you want me to come on, I'm happy to do it. It's the least I can do.
All right, for now, get back to the video editing, and we need a big game tomorrow. Okay,
No, I think
we got the Kraken coming to town.
I think I'm going to the fridge and grabbing a beer. Video can wait.
Like a better idea.
There's always time for video. So,
all right, Nigel, thank you so much. We appreciate you, man. Take care.
Deuces, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, how awesome was that? And hey, I have to give a shout out to Matt, Monkey Colt, our favorite sponsor here, who helped link us up with Nigel. So Matt, thank you so much for helping to make that happen. That was awesome. Really great to be able to talk to Nigel.
It's horrible how humble he is, but it's also good about how humble he is, because like there is a behind the scenes episode, I forget what it was, behind the scenes episode of someone getting the chance to go down there into the video room, and that's amazing. Like, I've gotten to do a lot of things. Probably my favorite thing was in the radio booth up with Phil and Dave Michigan. But
that's got to be an experience. They need to do that again so I can win that.
Yeah, that was something awesome to do. But I would definitely put being in that video room as number 2. Just seeing that and seeing the behind the scenes that they did on his, I forget, I want to say it was like a kids charity thing or something, and they showed the behind the scenes, and that was really cool. I mean, even if you get, one year they did something special, I think it was for STMs, where they took us in light and vision room, and even that was pretty cool, just to see where light and vision is actually put together. And you don't actually get to see how much is put into it, because it's a room that's got dark windows all the way around it, and it's at the end behind one of the in the 200s over by the Chase Club, and you never know that that's what that is unless you sit over near there. Yeah. And that was a good experience. So I think being down there with Nigel also would be just an awesome thing.
Yeah, really cool. And since we saw the question in the chat, December 25th, Merry Christmas. Monkey Colt Coffee is coming to town. It should be available the 25th.
On 10 a.m. Online at 10 a.m.
Yeah, so that'll be your first chance. I know I'm going to be ordering some on the 25th for sure. So definitely go check it out. You can go onto the website now, monkeycoltcoffee.com, get on the list. Bourbon chocolate chip. That's like my favorite things. And coffee.
I'm going to get out ahead of it. I'm just going to give you guys the idea. Iced coffee. All right. I'm not a big hot coffee guy. I'm telling you,
just invent something.
No, I'm saying this flavor is great for iced coffee. Not all flavors are conducive to being put on ice. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is one of those ones this is gonna be great for an iced coffee.
I hear you. Yeah, can't wait. So definitely check that out. And seriously, Matt was a big on getting Nigel to join us. So really appreciate that, Matt and Monkey Colt. By the way, we'll give our other sponsor a quick shout out here. SeatGeek.com. You can use our code WTTPOD, POD. That code will get you $20 off your first time using SeatGeek.com. So go get yourself some Lightning tickets for tomorrow or Thursday.
Something else, Matt Monkey Colt also got us on was the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, yes, I did, because I have actually been saying it a lot this last week, because Thunderbolts, in coalition with We the Thunder, is having a Christmas party raffle event at our newest sponsor, Cigar City Brewery, on Spruce Street this Saturday. And we will have lots of raffle items there that the money is going to go to the National Pediatric Foundation, Cancer Foundation. So thank you to Matt for also getting us in contact with them. So the partnership with Monkey Colt has been doing great. And then also Cigar City.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are not in already in the Thunderbolts group, you missed out because we're pretty much at
we're pretty much
capacity,
at
right? We
capacity.
can't really
Yes.
take anyone else right now unless somebody else drops out or something. The reason why is because we've got kind of the private room over at Cigar City.
Here's what I will say
Yes.
is we have the private room and they're going to give everybody one free beer. And then Thunderbolts is going to provide the food. So they do have a whole half of a restaurant still there. If you want to be there Saturday for the watch party / Christmas party, you can come there. You can still bid on the raffle items that we will have there. We are not going to say no to any money for charity. I can tell you that. So if you want to be there on Saturday, you can still come. You just won't get the buffet style food. But me, Shooter, Stash, all the admins from Thunderbolts, we're all going to be there. We're all mingle with any Lightning fans. We'll talk to anybody.
Nope.
Even non-Lightning fans, Stash will
Nope.
still go over there and say hi to them.
Nope. I'll be exclusively in the private room.
We'll see if Stash shows up.
VIP. I'm definitely gonna be there this time.
He normally doesn't show up for Thunderbolts events.
Because you schedule him when I'm out of the state.
This will be his debut.
All right,
my
so
doppelganger.
we have a little treat for you. Thanks to Steve, huge Lightning fan, has some amazing seats. He wants to give away those seats for tomorrow to somebody watching. So I have got the old chat hashtag machine up, and if you hashtag Monkey Colt with a comment, you will be entered to win. You're gonna have to hang out with us for another 15 minutes because we still got a show to do here. But if you go ahead and put that in the chat, you will be eligible for 3 seats tomorrow night. Some awesome seats, some of the best seats I've ever sat in at Amalie Arena. So put that in the chat, and you might win. Yeah, make sure you spell it right. So yeah, we're gonna go for a couple more minutes because we got some hockey to talk about. We haven't even talked about the last week of hockey. We got the challenge to do, and then we'll get out of here. So probably like 10-15 more minutes. Stash is probably getting a refill. Let's start off with Detroit. We lost to Detroit after having Ryan on from the Wing Wheel podcast and told us about their goalie. Their goalie played the game of his life against the Lightning. Vasi also played great that game. But the Lightning did end up losing to Detroit, and I thought they got outplayed most of this game. The exception was the third period where the Lightning finally started to really just kind of pepper shots on goal. The controversy in this game was Cooper pulled Vasi with like 4 minutes left, down 2.
Down 2,
Or
and then we
down
scored. It worked. And we scored. Then he pulled them again, and then they got the empty net on us.
Well, no, I thought they scored. I thought they scored as soon as he pulled them a little bit too early. Or no, did we score to bring it within 1? I think it was 2-0, and then it was 2-1, and then they pulled him, but it was like 4 minutes left, and everyone was a little bit pissed about that game. But I mean, that's what Cooper does. He's not shy with pulling the goalie, and out of all people, Adam Erne launches one from our zone, and the Lightning still got another goal when they pulled the goalie, but it was just too late. And I always feel like, our team sometimes just runs out of time. You know what I mean? We need the fourth period sometimes because they were coming on strong and they would have won this game if they had another. If they even forced overtime, they would have won this game in overtime. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Any comments on that one?
Well, there was, and you also had the return of Lalonde. And they did the tribute to him, which I really thought he deserved. And there was a lot of, it looked like it was back and forth shuffling between them, because they're all familiar with each other. So it was kind of like the master and the student, and the student and the master, and then they both are masters now. And it was a nice little game of chess that the two had between Derek and Coop. And so Derek got the best of it. Now let's see the return to Detroit. What happens with Blashnell?
All right. Well, hey, real quick, thanks for joining in, Karen. First time listener. What a great episode to join for the first time. If you got to see the Nigel interview, it's only going to go downhill from here. But please keep listening and watching.
Yeah, we peaked
What are
tonight.
you talking about? You can win tickets to tomorrow's game.
No, I gotta say, we were there in those amazing seats for that game, and I don't know, it was just a weird game to me overall. It was a weird tone. It felt like the Lightning didn't play bad. They didn't play great. And again, we were talking about they switched up the lines for some reason, and it felt like bad timing to do that. But like you said, also Lalonde coming in and has a lot to prove right now, and there's a lot to prove for that Red Wings team, and they've been our little bitch for a long time. You know what I mean? What was it, 16, 17 games in a row that they had gone without beating us here or there. So it's only been 2 seasons since they broke that streak, and they still don't have that great of a record. I think that it's only 500 since then. So they have a lot more to prove, I think, in that game, in that moment, especially because they are sitting there teetering on the playoff spot, and a pretty solid expectation that the Lightning are making the playoffs with the way they are playing right now. So it's just one of those games, you would like to win that game, but you kind of understand how it played out, and it's not like the Lightning weren't trying to do the best because they had so many shots on goal. It was insane. They were peppering him. So,
I think it was like almost 30 in the third period. So
yeah,
they got outplayed the first 2 periods, which that's been a problem with this team is, and it's been a problem with the team for a long time, is they know that they can kind of turn it on when they need to, and they kind of coast at other times. The last 2 games, they did not coast. Wow. Nashville 5-2 win. Point and Perry scored before I even freaking got to turn the game on. They scored less than 2 minutes into the game. I'm talking to my kids, and I'm like trying to put the game on, but we're like trying to be a dad. And then by the time I get the game on, it's 2-0. Not complaining. But I think one of the big highlights of that game we mentioned earlier was the McDonough tribute. Really, really well done as usual. You saw him if you watched on TV, and he didn't play in the game because he was injured, but you saw him up in one of the suites.
Actually, he was in, and a lot of people doesn't know this. He was in Vinnick's suite. Yeah. Mr. Vinnick had him in his personal suite rather than up with the other Nashville players and with the dads and stuff like that. Mr. Vinnick actually asked him personally to come and be in his suite
for the tribute. Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, he had a nice shiner on his eye, and he was definitely a little emotional by the time that ended.
Yeah, I said it before when we were talking to Nigel. I've been to a lot of big games, a lot of big moments at Amalie Arena, and that's one of the loudest ovations I remember hearing there, and sustained ovation. Like, they had to cut the fans off because they were coming out of the TV timeout, and they had to drop the puck. And but it was, I think we would have gone on for minutes. Honestly, that ovation, it would have not stopped.
And Coop did say this in his Stephanie said it messed up their momentum, and he did say that. Coop said it couldn't have come at a worse time because they were railing around, and then all of a sudden he said there wasn't a dry eye anywhere.
Yeah, and the tide kind of changed a little bit because the Preds came back, tied it up, and then one of the things that I really liked, and I like this trend for the Lightning the last couple weeks, is strong third periods. We weren't really seeing that at the beginning of the season, but Point and Paul take the lead, extend the lead, and then Hagel adds a shorty. By the way, we did give up a shorthanded goal. We are on pace to break the record for most shorthanded goals given up in a season, which is 22. I believe we're at 7 now.
Yep.
So we're gonna really destroy that record, one that you don't want to have. This was also Cooper's 450th win. He's the fastest coach to get to that mark. Again, no Jack Adams. Saturday. By the way, these were both reverse retro games, Nashville and Florida. Saturday, Smash Mouth in the house, kicking it off. I like when they have concerts before the game out there. I think they should just find bands. Like, I don't care for the cover bands. They should have a band out there because we
agree.
like
They used to
Yeah.
every game. And
Every game. Yep.
I'll tell you, the entertainment out on the plasma, even just the advertisers out with their tents out front, has diminished greatly, and and I don't know if it's just because they don't need the butts in the seats, or they pay so much for advertisement inside the arena. I don't know, but it's not fun going to the arena early anymore because they don't do that kind of stuff. Now they are building the Publix stage over in Publix Plaza.
is that what it is?
Yes.
Stage?
They have 2 stages that are being built over there. So it looks like they're going to have entertainment over there sponsored by Publix.
Well, they're going to have to amp it up a little bit because as places start to open, you already see the construction across the street for the big restaurant that's going to be there. You know, Stash and I are usually at a nice establishment wetting our whistle down the street. So, you know, I wouldn't mind going to the stadium earlier if there's a little bit more entertainment, but, you know, just standing around with Thomas Schooley doesn't do it for me. But Smash Mouth does. No, I brought my kids and they loved they liked it. They thought it was cool. Highlight of this game was Patty Maroon, first goal of the season, which we also mentioned earlier. Good to see him finally score. You could tell the sense of relief after he scored that goal. You had some point goals, Sergachev with a goal, Stamkos with a nifty little move to kind of put it away there. And then I thought this was one of Vasi's best games of the season. Should have had a shutout. The only goal that Florida scored was really kind of I think it went off Sergachev, right?
Yep.
So Vasi should have had that shutout. I don't think he's had a shutout this season.
No,
he has not.
But we are the only team that has not been shut out also this year.
So,
well, that almost happened versus Detroit. We didn't get that first goal until the last couple minutes there.
Yeah.
So Anthony Cirelli came back this week too, and has been a huge difference maker. Not necessarily getting on the scoreboard with goals, but getting 4 assists over the last couple games. So he's been had a huge impact. Stash thinks he's the only one that thought that was going to happen. He was the only one that thought that was going to happen. No, he's definitely it was a welcome back for Cirelli, who seems like he hasn't really missed a beat.
We talked about it. You could see how important he is to this team and how much just that dynamic on those lines have changed since he's came back. You can see there's a lot more trust with him there rather than when they were shuffling Koepke. And it just looks like everybody is now comfortable. Even when Coop is shuffling, they just seem comfortable with each other. Hagel looks like he is settled in and he's comfortable. Paul, you see him settled in. He looks comfortable. It just looks like this team is now just full of veterans and everybody's just comfortable with each other. And it looks like they're back to having fun hockey again.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, though, I think we're going to see is look at the goals against now since Cirelli's come back.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to bring a defense to this team that they haven't had, you know, and that's something that I've never bemoaned his defense as far as all the Selke conversation regarding him. My contention has always been his offense has never been good enough. His defense as a forward has never been in question. He's been one of the best defensive forwards since he's come into the NHL. Truly,
it's the only reason his name's ever been in the Selke conversation.
Absolutely, is he doesn't have the points. So I mean, it's what he does for the middle of that roster in the middle of the ice as a back checking forward. What he does on the PK. All the other things that he does for this team that just gives them that more solid foundation. It just gives the blue line a better understanding what's happening. They can trust him when he's out there, and you put him on that line with the Colton and why am I blanking now? And Nemestikov. And you know, both of those guys are also fairly responsible with the puck as well. They're going to try and make plays in their own zone, but both of those guys get back really well, and they both play really well in their own zone. So I just think that it really plugs up that hole in that third line. And you saw in the last game, Coop went back to getting the top six cemented. And then he kind of shuffled the bottom six a little bit, and that's what led to Maroon getting his goal because he's had a little bit more ice time. He's been playing on that third line since Cirelli came back with Colton, and that line has been looking really good.
Well, I don't know why in that Detroit game in the first period, who was it? It was Maroon, Cirelli, and Vladdy, I think that were playing together, and they were by far the best line on the ice. And I kept yelling out, "Oh, we got a new first line! We got a new first line!" But they haven't really played together since that game, I don't think.
No, because he switched and put Colton on there.
Yeah, but I did like that line. They were on fire that game, but unfortunately, they were the only line on fire for the first couple periods of that game. All right, so let's do the challenge here and get out of here. By the way, we only have 7 entries right now. So if you just put hashtag Monkey Colt into the comments, you get entered. There's only 7 right now. So get that in while you can. We got to pick someone from the Thunder here. I've seen Dan all show, and we already owe Dan a little bit. So Dan, we want you to play the challenge with us. You got to answer 3 simple questions, and you got to answer them quick before we do, or else you probably are going to get the worst pick of the bunch. But first, let's go over last week's results.
Recap.
We did goals for the Bolts as a collective. That means the whole team, not just a player. The Lightning scored, 11 goals last week. The Stash said 11 goals. The Thunder said 11 goals. So a point each for you guys. Goals given up. 7 last week. The Stash said 7. Schooley said 7, so a point for Schooley and Stash. And then the other one was the Predators point score. Who scores the most points for the Preds? They only scored 1 goal, folks. So there wasn't much. Or no, they scored 2, didn't they?
2.
Yeah. So there wasn't much to go around, but Forsberg and Nina Ryder, Schooley and Stash, they each had 1 point. So I'm going to give you each 1 point for their assists. That puts the Stash in the first place spot with 10, with Schooley in second with 8, Shooter with 7, and the Thunder bringing it up from behind with the 6. So still anyone's game, but the Stash has taken the lead again. So this week, we've got a couple questions here. Hopefully, Dan's still there, or else we'll have to find somebody else. But the best plus minus versus the Kraken. By the way, this week we got the Kraken tomorrow, the Jackets Thursday. Those are both here in Tampa, and then we go on the road to play the Canadians on Saturday night. Kraken Jackets, Canadians. They should have named them the Kraken Jackets. Maybe they play better. Best plus minus versus the Kraken. So I need a player who's going to have the best plus minus versus the Kraken. I am the loser so far. Ian Cole, Dan, you got the first guess. You go Ian Cole. I'm always going to go with Kucherov when it has, this is actually a tough one. I am going to stick with Kucherov. Stash and Schooley plus minus versus the Kraken. Cirelli and
I'm going to say Paul.
Okay, this is pretty interesting. We pretty much have all players on different lines. So
yeah.
Most penalty minutes versus the Blue Jackets.
Ooh.
Maroon.
I'm going Stamkos.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Colton.
Dan, we need penalty minutes versus the Blue Jackets. Who's going to get the most? And we'll wait for you on that one, but we're going to move ahead to most goals versus the Canadians. I'm going to go with Point.
Damn it. Dan said Cooch.
I'm putting that for points, or I'm sorry, for penalty minutes. I need most goals versus Canadians. I got Point. Who else? Who you guys got?
Stamkos.
Hammer.
I'm gonna say
I'll let Dan have Stamkos. I'll take Hagel.
Okay. Got Hagel and
I'm gonna take Paul.
I typed it in before you even put it. I can finish your sentences, Thomas Cooley. How sick is that? All right. Well, we got it. That'll be fun because we are going to be watching the game all together on Saturday night. So we'll see who wins that one. All right. Other than that, it's been a show, boys. Got anything else to say?
I do. I want to announce 3 things that we will be raffling off at the Christmas party that nobody has seen yet. So the first thing is this playoff hoodie. It is none other than, well, you don't want to see all that.
No,
Dudes.
no, we don't.
Coops hoodie?
What size is it? A grande?
It's large.
Am I eligible to win this?
Anybody for the raffles. And I will start putting them online starting Wednesday. We will start selling tickets on Wednesday so we can make the most money.
Hosts are eligible, right?
Yes. Anybody's eligible. So it is Coop's hoodie from
I'll
last
be wearing
year's
that next
playoffs.
show. I will be wearing that next show. I will be chewing gum wearing Coop's hoodie.
Then I also have a hat, none other than Corey Perry's.
Corey Perry.
And one more hat, none other than Nick Paul's.
Nick Paul's hat.
So
that's a dope hat too. I love that one.
Those are 3 things that will be up for raffle at the Christmas party. We will start putting them in the Thunderbolts group starting on Wednesday. You can start buying raffle tickets starting Wednesday.
All right, so you got about 3 seconds to type in hashtag Monkey Colt into the comments because I'm pulling up the old random generator here so we can choose a winner. So get it in. Brian really wants us to get Nigel's jacket.
Yeah, good luck. And there was a point walking into his meet and greet today, and of course he had the camo Crocs on.
Socks and Crocs, of course. Jesus.
All right, let's give away some tickets.
Do it.
Let's see here. By the way, we'll be back next Monday.
Yes, we will.
Not with anybody special, just us.
I don't think we have a guest, but we are booking some more guests for the new year. So don't worry, it's not just going to be us blabbering on about the team. We got some guests coming up. We know Eric Erlindson's going to come on in January, and he's going to come on a couple times throughout the rest of the season. So that's one, and we'll have some other surprises for you too. Hashtag Monkey Colt. Let's give away some tickets. You're going to have to shoot us a message on Facebook or over on Twitter. And we'll get these to you. Dan, there you go, Dan. Got yourself some tickets. It's like karma. All long story behind that one.
Yeah.
But there you go, Dan. Hey, shoot us.
And also, don't worry. Make sure you get it to Shooty, and he'll take care of it.
He's got the email. Dan's got our email.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he does.
He's got the email.
Don't worry.
So, Dan, you're going to the game tomorrow. Got 3 tickets for you,
awesome
courtesy
seats.
of Steve. So, appreciate you, Steve. They're awesome seats. So, you're going to have an awesome time tomorrow. First to Kraken, say hey to Yanni Gord for us, okay? I'm like waiting for him to answer. Wait a minute.
Okay.
That's not how it works. All right. That's it. See you guys next week.
Hey.
Yep.
What a great show.
Until then, this has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.
That's it?